What's going on, everybody? Ronnie DiMaggio here, product specialist at BMW Morristown. That's Austin behind the camera, and in today's video we are doing a walk around and overview with this beautiful 2023 BMW M8 Competition Coupe. So the 2023 M8 is the LCI version of the M8. The M8 did get a refresh, a life cycle impulse for the 2023 model year. However, it's a very mild refresh. There are no changes on the exterior. The only change in the interior is a slightly larger Idrive screen, the availability of carbon fiber bucket seats like you find in the G80, G82, and some paint color options. So not much has changed on the LCI, so we are just going to go over the M8 in general. This will apply to the LCI as well as the pre-LCI M8. So we're going to talk about this M8. We're going to talk about the exterior design features. We're going to talk about the performance. We'll talk about what is going on in the interior as well. This car has a really nice interior. So we'll talk about everything there is to know on the M8. So to get started, let's hop underneath the hood. Being an M car, the engine is very important. So we'll go ahead and pop the hood. So engine choices are the same for the LCI of the M8. It's just one engine available in the M8, and that is the S63 4.4 liter twin turbo V8. In competition guise, it makes 617 horsepower and 553 pound-feet of torque. We did recently post a video with an in-depth technical discussion related to the S63 as well as the other M engines. If you want to browse our channel, find that video. You'll get all the nitty-gritty details, compression ratio, bore and stroke, boost pressure, all that fun stuff with the S63. So if you want more, go check that video out. But for now, suffice it to say that this is a super, super potent powertrain in the M8 competition. 617 horsepower, like I said, is a ton, and it makes it a lot of nice low-end torque in the RPM range. It has a very meaty, guttural kind of low torque curve. So really, really potent engine. Does a great job in the M8 here. Close up the hood. All right, so let's talk about some of the design elements for the M8 Competition Coupe. First things first, you probably noticed it right away. This paint color is really unique and special and new for the 2023 BMW M8. This is Frozen Tanzanite Blue Metallic. So Tanzanite Blue has been a pretty popular individual color in BMWs for a little while now. People love Tanzanite Blue on the M cars. You can get it on some other cars as well, but BMW recognized how popular Tanzanite was and said, hey, let's make it a frozen paint color, see how that works. And it worked great because this car looks absolutely stunning in this frozen paint color. Frozen is BMW parlance for matte or a satin paint finish. So Frozen Tanzanite Blue is a new option for 2023 on the M8. Looks really good on this car because it has the black grills to accent. This car also has the optional carbon fiber exterior package, which means that these inlet surrounds as well as these little front splitters are trimmed in glossy carbon fiber. So looking at this car from the front, the Frozen Tanzanite, the way it contrasts with the gloss black grille as well as the carbon fiber, it looks so incredibly aggressive. Looks really, 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 really good. The front end of the M8 here, super aggressive. It's also, you know, it is aggressive, but it's not crazy in your face. Doesn't have a bunch of crazy splitters and stuff hanging off the end of it. It's classy, but aggressive at the same time. You also do have the M signature dual slat kidney grills as well as the 50th anniversary roundel. So some familiar BMW M stuff up front. This car is also equipped with BMW laser headlights. Super bright at night and gives you that really distinct, sharp looking daytime running light. Looks really nice. If we want to move around to the side of the car, we can take a look at the wheels as well as the brakes behind them. So these are a 20-inch wheel. The front tire is a 275. And hiding behind these wheels are a blue M brake caliper, some cross-drilled rotors. Something cool about the M cars, if you take a kind of close look at the hub of the rotor, it is a two-piece rotor, so that helps with dissipating heat. Just one of the many considerations that BMW makes when they design their brake packages for M cars. They know that these cars get driven hard and the brakes are there to back it up. So really powerful 6-piston front brake caliper. Moving along to the side of the car design-wise, you have some more carbon fiber right here, part of the carbon fiber exterior package. That side grille says M8 and it is trimmed in carbon fiber. Just another place where that Frozen Tanzanite looks so nice against the bright glossy carbon fiber. Same deal up on the M wing mirror caps, also trimmed in glossy carbon fiber. And another cool thing about the spec on this particular M8 is the carbon fiber roof. The more carbon fiber, the better, as far as I'm concerned, on any M car, especially a Frozen car. I think it looks so cool to have a Frozen paint color, and then the glossy carbon fiber, that contrast looks really nice, especially with Frozen Tanzanite. It's a dark color, you have the dark carbon and gloss, looks really good. Moving along to the back wheel, it is also a 20, it's a 285, so 10 millimeter wider tire out back. You still have a two-piece brake rotor, smaller caliper, still painted in that same blue color. You can choose a couple different paint color options on the M8. I think blue's a great choice here with Frozen Tanzanite. I think that brighter blue looks really good on the brake caliper. If we want to take a look at the back of the car, it's hard to decide what the best angle on the M8 is. Pretty much every angle is stunning, but the back might be my favorite. It looks really, really aggressive with really large quad exhaust. And then you have some more carbon fiber down around the diffuser area. It's kind of a mix and match of gloss black and carbon fiber. That carbon around the exhaust looks really nice. And you do, of course, have a little carbon fiber wing. And being a competition package car, you do have a black M8 badge. If you take a close look at like an M5, for example, the non-comp has a chrome badge. The competition has the black badge with the competition underline. Looks nice. I'm usually in favor of the chrome badges, but I think with Frozen Tanzanite, just the darker theme around this car, I think the black badge looks nice. And your one little pop of color is that 50th anniversary roundel. You get that little splash of white to add some color. So that is going to do it for the exterior styling elements of the 2023 M8. So let's take a look at the trunk as well as the back seat, and then we'll hop inside and talk about the interior. All right, so here we are around back of the M8 Competition Coupe. We'll take a look at some of the trunk space. You might be surprised, this being a two-door coupe, you'd think maybe the trunk isn't that big, but it is a big car despite having only two doors, so trunk space is actually really impressive. It goes really far back. You could probably fit a golf bag lengthways. Might have to take like the drivers in the woods out, but you could put a golf bag lengthways, probably even with all the clubs in it. It's a really, really spacious, surprisingly spacious trunk. This is, the M8's kind of designed as like a grand touring car. It is capable around a track if that's what you want to use it for, but mostly kind of grand touring, high performance grand touring kind of stuff. So you need cargo area for that if you're going to be going long distances on trips or something. So you have cargo area to spare in the back of the M8, golf clubs, luggage, whatever you need. It will fit back there, plenty of room. Now, one place where there's not quite as much room is the back seat. However, I am going to demonstrate that it is usable if you need to. All you have to do is pull this lever forward, and the seat will move as far forward as possible. So this is the access position. So now I can kind of slide myself back here, and you guys can't really see me too well, but I'll put the seat back, and I do have knee room, headroom's a little bit tight, legroom's a little bit tight. Not someplace back here that I would want to spend a terribly long drive, but it's doable in a pinch. If you want to throw an adult back here, you can make it work. For kids, I'm sure it would be fine, but that is the trunk and the back seat of the M8. Let's get a little more comfortable in the front seats and go over some of the interior features up front. All right, so here we are inside of the M8 Competition Coupe. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the general things like the Idrive Screen, the gauge cluster, but we're also going to go pretty in-depth with the M-specific stuff because we haven't done an M8 yet. So we'll talk about what is special about the interior of the M8, and all of that has to do with the M setup, some M-specific like design elements, stuff like that. So we'll start looking at the gauge cluster. The gauge cluster is largely the same as the Live Cockpit Pro gauge cluster that you would get in an M850 or an 840. There are some subtle changes for the M model. The first one being that you have an oil temp gauge here rather than a water temperature gauge. And you'll also see that the kind of bars that indicate the RPM as well as the speed are gray rather than orange or black as they are in a quote-unquote normal car. That's a callback to M cars of old that used gray face gauges. If you watch our recent video on the E46 M3, we talked about the gray face gauges in that, so a little callback there from BMW, which is nice to see. One other difference with the M8 or the M cars in general as opposed to the series cars is that if you press the M mode button in the center console, You get the dual bar tachometer, as well as the gear position and speed in a larger font in the center. And then you have your tachometer also shown in your heads-up display in a horizontal fashion, so looks really cool. It's a little bit sportier of a gauge cluster. If you want to actually take a closer look at the gauge cluster right now, you can see that if we press the BC button over on the right side of the gauge cluster, we can toggle between different sport displays and things like that. So we can have different menus shown in the right section of the gauge cluster. The left part is configurable as well. We'll talk about that when we talk about the M menus. So that is the gauge cluster in the M8. If we take a look over to the center screen, this iDrive screen is the same as the regular 8 series. Obviously, there are some changes in the menus. You have the M menu, which you don't have in a normal 8 series. One kind of small change is that the kind of highlight around the different icons on the screen is red and has like a shadow to it, as I accidentally activate gesture control, but it has that red shadow. That is specific to the M cars. You won't see that on a 840 or an M850 as well. So iDrive screen pretty similar. All of these climate controls, all these controls in the center here are the same as a regular 8 series. One aesthetic difference is if we take a look down at the center console area, we see we have a really cool M8 competition badge right there, as well as carbon fiber trim. So you have the carbon fiber in the middle of the console to kind of add that sporty touch. Carbon fiber, everybody knows carbon fiber is the sportiest trim, so have it in the M8 here. You do have the ability to open this up for wireless charger and cup holders. So the carbon fiber is specific to the M models. But while we're talking about the iDrive screen, let's take a look at the M menu. So the M menu is obviously the menu that you would go to customize all of the M specific things in the car. So if we press on M menu here, we have the ability to configure our M1 and M2 buttons. So those are these red buttons on the steering wheel. So you have M1 over here on the right, M1 on the left, M2 on the right. So you can press these as kind of hotkeys to your favorite drive mode. So let's configure our M1, for example. Let's say we want this to be all efficient and comfortable. So we'll set the engine to efficient. Transmission, we'll leave it in D1. That's the most relaxed shifting setting. Chassis, steering, brake, stability control, all in comfort mode. We're also going to leave the car in the standard 4-wheel drive mode. So traction control on, 4-wheel drive engaged. Auto start stop, let's just leave that on for the sake of being efficient. And then the sound control, we'll turn it off. So M1 will make our super comfortable mode. So if we press M1 here, maybe you could even hear that in the video, the exhaust quiets up, everything's very tame. If we go over to M2, let's make this our super sporty setting. So engine sport plus, transmission will go S3, that's sequential mode with fast shifting. Chassis sport plus, steering sport, brake sport, DSC. MDM stands for M dynamic mode. So MDM is kind of halfway between traction control on and off. Kind of lets you slip the wheels a little bit, get a little sideways if you want, but it'll kind of rein you in. DSC off is kind of full drifto mode. If you want to really lose traction, you can do that. And the really cool thing about the all-wheel drive M sedans and coupes, like the M3 sedan, M4 coupe, M5, so on and so forth, is that you can actually make them rear-wheel drive. So it has all-wheel drive. Right now we're in all-wheel drive sport, which is a kind of reduced traction all-wheel drive. But if we want to, we can just click it into 2-wheel drive mode. And now we are in a rear-wheel drive car as opposed to all-wheel drive. So if you want to do some burnouts, some donuts, drifting, something like that, turn your traction control off, go to 2-wheel drive mode, and now you have a rear-wheel drive car. Sound control controls the exhaust flaps. So you have a quiet and a loud mode. So while we're talking about the exhaust, why don't you guys take a listen to a quick exhaust clip with the sound control on in its loudest setting. In addition to being able to adjust the sound control in the configure menu for M1 and M2, you do also have a hard key right down here. If we press this, you can change the exhaust kind of on the fly without having to go into the menu. So those are your M1 and M2 buttons. You also have the ability to configure your heads-up display for your different M modes. So right now, if we go to configure view, we can configure it for road mode, which is the standard mode that I showed you, and then we can configure it for sport mode as well. So Probably easier for you guys to just look here rather than actually look in the heads-up display, but this is what the heads-up display will look like. In sport mode, you can determine whether or not you want navigation to be shown in there as well. You can also configure your instrument panel, so this is pretty cool. We can configure our view. Let's do sport mode, and now we have that empty widget selection over on the left. So in pardon me, jump to the wrong menu. In this menu, you can option tire data, engine data, or a G meter on that left side of the gauge cluster. So if we select tire data here in our left widget selection, and then we take a look at the gauge cluster, you can see on the left here, there's my tire data. This car is so new that the tire pressures haven't had a chance to reset, but if they had, I would have my tire pressure as well as the tire temperature. And then on the right, by pressing the BC button, I can configure different things. I think this is my favorite. You have boost pressure, water temperature, oil temperature, and tire data, all your performance metrics right there in the gauge cluster. So that is a cool look for the M mode. Speaking of the M mode, why don't we take a look at those buttons? These are your M specific buttons. So you have M mode, that's how I change between the regular and the M gauge cluster, or the sport gauge cluster setting. Also, neat thing about M mode is that in this car, if I hold it down, you can see on the screen up here, it says for track mode, keep pressed. So if I hold that down, track mode deactivates the Idrive screen, it goes black. It also turns off all our intelligent safety stuff. So it's literally designed to be used on a track, because you don't need lane departure warning when you're driving on a racetrack, of course. We have our setup button. So if we press this and take a look at the screen, this is just another way to adjust the setup in real time. So you can configure this independent of your M1 and M2 buttons. So I can change my engine, chassis, steering, brake, as well as the four-wheel drive. And this does change in real time. In order to configure xDrive, we just turn traction control off, and now we're in four-wheel drive sport. If I hold down the traction button for a little bit here, then we can put it in full two-wheel drive mode. Last button is the exhaust button, like we talked about. So that allows you to toggle the volume of the exhaust. Some other M-specific things are the start-stop button is red, which looks really nice and sporty. And then on the shifter, you have your drive logic selector. So if we press, if we actually put the car in drive here, and then press these buttons, we can look in the gauge cluster, and we'll be able to see that the shift speed will adjust in real time. So there's your drive logic selectors. So after the drive logic selector, there's not many buttons that are specific to the M8. Talked about M1 and M2. We have our paddle shifters, stuff like that. But as far as other M specific things in the M8, the shifter is unique to the M cars, as is the tricolor stitching. The M8 does get unique seats with the M8 logo in the seat back, which looks really nice. Other than that, it is pretty standard fare for the BMW flagship, which is to say that it is fantastically luxurious and comfortable in here. You have nice leather all over the dashboard, all the high-touch surfaces. The roof is finished in Alcantara, which looks and feels really nice. So really well-designed interior here, really high-quality materials. Everything looks and feels as fantastic as you would expect for the price tag that comes with this car. Everything is up to snuff. If anything else, it's a pretty good value considering the cars that this car competes with. The M8 is on their level performance and luxury-wise, and not quite on their level price-wise. So really, really impressive interior in the M8. Really cool M tech, like performance technology with the M modes and stuff like that, as well as the luxury aspect as well. So that's going to do it for the interior of the M8 Competition Coupe. Let's hop outside and wrap up. All right, so that is going to do it for this walk around and overview of the 2023 BMW M8 Competition Coupe. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Really happy that we were able to bring this M8 to you guys. It's such a cool spec, Frozen Tanzanite Blue on the 2023 M8 with the carbon fiber package. This is just a really nice spec M8, so I'm glad we were able to share it with you guys. If you liked the video, please drop a like down below, drop a comment. We reply to all of our comments, and please subscribe to the channel. Also, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at BMW Morristown. We're super responsive on all of our social media. Send us a DM, drop a comment. We reply to all that stuff. So thank you guys so much for watching. Any ideas for future videos, drop them down in a comment below. Any cars you want to see, but that's going to do it for this one. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.